how'd you get into acting? Like, what was the start for you?
I grew up in New York and I started modeling when I was really young. I was really tall. I feel like at the time in the early 80s in New York, it was like I was tall and I was thin, and you were walking down the street and it was like, hey, come put on these clothes and we'll pay you the tiniest amount of money possible, but you'll get that little inch of prestige. And I did that from, I think I started at 12 or 13 all the way up to college. And by college, I wanted to travel and I wanted to be a diplomat. And I started in a pre-law major and it was so boring. And I was being told over and over, it doesn't matter if you can speak any languages. You're going to be in Guam as a woman till you're like 50. Like you can forget your dreams of France or Lebanon or like exciting or cool, whatever you wanted it to be. They were like, no, you're going to be in the middle of nowhere. So I wandered into the theater department and started doing things there and didn't tell my parents for, I don't know, 2 years, I think. By the time I confessed, I had changed my major and they were furious. I was the first person in my family to go to college. They were like, this is a waste of money and time, and you can never work again. And my mother had the presence of mind to say, you don't want to be an actor. You want to be a star. You better go learn how to act. So I transferred to a college in England, and I have this really old fashioned Shakespeare theater training, which did very little for me when I came out of school. But it definitely washed off the idea of, today we have influencers who can become anything they want. But at the time, it seemed like, oh, she's really a model. She's not an actress. So that was all wiped away. Um, and it was a really slow burn, I think, because of the thing I said earlier, because I did not have an ingenue quality. I did not have a little lass that needed to be rescued from a lily pad. There was none of that. I didn't really work regularly until I was getting close to 30, where the formidability that I carry or the strength that I carry could be paired with men in their 40s and 50s. Because it was dealing with inmate firefighters, it had this whole redemption theme about who's a good guy and who's a bad guy and what do we say in society about people? Do we write them off forever? Or is there another chance? So it was like a perfect cocktail. And it was one of those jobs from the second you got on it that you were like, this is going to go for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wasn't it number one? Was it,
Yes.
yes, yeah, for that when it started though, it's really amazing. And
Yeah.
you've played firefighters before, which is really wild.
So random, right? It's my third time playing a firefighter, the most famous one being Rescue Me.
Hmm.
And I only have two uncles. They're both firefighters. Like casting people are a little bit of a mystic sometimes, I think. My my real life boyfriend is one of the directors on our show, and his name is Eagle. And Billy Burke was wearing a hat the other day with an eagle on it. And I was looking at him and asking, he's like, yeah, if I was going to identify with an animal, that's the one I'm most identified with. And I was like, oh my God, the casting people really did a good job.
That's
Like,
so funny. Yeah.
like they didn't know, he wasn't even my boyfriend at the time, but it's just really funny when they get it all right. So there's something in my energy that screams firefighter over
Firefighter.
again.
With this show, you've done series before, obviously, and you just said you knew it was going to go for a long time. What is it? What sense do you get when you read a script that this is going to go for a while?
There are certain franchises that people like, right? We have law, we have medical, we have police, and we have um, firefighters to a lesser degree because it's an exciting time to see people. In theory, you're seeing them in a life or death situation, which heightens the drama. So you get a lot of those scripts, but they don't have any heart. They feel like they were just made for the formula. But because this was about inmate firefighters trying to put themselves back in society through firefighting, it just gave you a whole other layer. And then Joan and Tony are so good. That's the writers that wrote out the script with Max from his totally personal, real ideas. Um, they were sort of making it about a family more than just a firehouse.
You were on Love Lines or with Dr. Drew. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. It's so funny. My husband used to listen to that all the time. And I would hear him in the basement just burst out laughing at things. And I'd be like, what are you doing? What are you laughing at? But I was telling him, I said, I'm going to interview Diane Farr tomorrow that was on Love Lines. What was that like working on that? That you had to hear all kinds of crazy things on
It
there.
was nonstop crazy things. That was a really good one. So I'd been in LA for like 2 years and I couldn't get arrested. Like I had done like some great Broadway shows in New York and I moved to LA and it was a whole other gear. I didn't understand what was expected of me in auditions, and somehow I went in for this audition to co-host this thing. And on the bottom of my resume, my pay the rent job in New York, in LA when I moved there was I was teaching acting in a maximum security men's prison. And it said it on the bottom of the resume. So they asked me to come in because of that. They thought, well, if she can handle that, some question about is not going to make her roll off the couch here at Loveline. So I screen tested for that and for Party of Five on the same day. So I was either going on this very established show or I was going to be a sex expert. And, everybody in my life was rooting for the Party of Five. And I was like, no, I think I can use my voice. So that's where I started writing. So I got that job. And it was really like being Ed McMahon to the two guys who had been doing it for a long time. We used to shoot 4 shows a day on Thursdays and Fridays around their radio schedule. We'd shoot 200 episodes in a season. It was so intense, but because of it, I started writing for magazines. And then the magazines just didn't really understand women. Like they were trying to sell products, obviously. So the first book I wrote was a retort to how stupid they were treating women. I was like, we are much more complex than this. So it was giving me everything that I needed, but man, was that a wild couple of years. It was also the most fame I ever had. It was on every day and it was very racy subject matter. So I couldn't be in public airports. I had to move. So people broke into my house, my
Oh,
car. Like,
no.
it was, and you make no money on MTV. It was just nonstop visibility. So it was a very interesting argument to my mother's early idea that I just want to be famous. It became very clear to me that I was like, I don't want to be famous. I actually want to act. The mom guilt is real and not really helpful to them or to me. So but I work on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think so many women feel that. I know I felt that and I didn't, I was just like when I taught school, if I
Mhm.
had to go to a meeting and I couldn't be here or there and oh my gosh. And I don't know. Do you find women place that guilt on each other or
Think so.
I felt like I felt more guilt from women, which I love women, but I felt more
Yeah.
guilt from women than from men. I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't really know any when preschool started and I met stay-at-home moms for the first time. And the moms that I were meeting were like Ivy League educated women who immediately went into making families. Like their job had always been family. And I feel like they took all the ambition they had for school and they put it towards family, be that snack or play dates or
Right.
what activities their kids were in. And I felt enormous pressure. And I don't know if they were putting it on me or I was just looking at the choices I had made by that time. I I know when someone is impressed with my job and I know when someone is leery of me because of my job, and that makes sense too. And then it felt like there was a camp of women that were like, this is what we do. And it felt like it was tinged with ours. It's more important, but I never know if that was my own guilt
Yeah. Yeah.
projecting onto them. Um, I never, I never, even my ex-husband, I remember saying, we're gonna need a night nurse. I can't remember if it was with my son or when I had twins, like 16 months later. And he tried to say, like, no, no, we'll just do it. And I said, okay, so we both work. So you want to stay up at night? Like he never guilted me into anything, but the privilege was real. The assumption was that it was going to get done, and that meant I was going to get it done. And then my nature, I feel like most mothers' nature is, I will do everything. Even when I was dating, I was aware that women were the keeper of intimacy. Most of my dating life, I had a job where I made more money than the guy and I had to travel more than the guy. And if I was cool with that, he was cool with that. And when I finally wanted to slow down and be in one place, he was cool with that. And I was like, oh, this is me. So I'm determining how much depth is in here, how much emotional closeness is in here. I'm sure I come from a matriarchal line of women. I'm sure there are women in relationships with men where the man is setting the tone for most things, but that was never my experience. So with age, I've also imparted to my daughters early on. We can get a lot of things done. So sometimes on a date, do nothing. Don't carry the conversation. Don't make any plans and see if that person's bringing anything to you. Because if they're not, that might not be the person you want to date.